That's right everyone, Dragon Ball Super the Manga Chapter 83 is here and... Okay, I was a little too harsh last time out and for that I apologise. I am still a little bit sore about it, but I'll look past it for this chapter, okay? In any case, what I do is review the Dragon Ball Super manga every month when it comes out using Viz Media's online portal, where you too can read up other Shonen Jump works as well as Super. Again, I'm not sponsored by Viz, I just like the service, and I get it when it's meant to come out. It'll also be interesting to see where this goes, this story. Now we're heading towards Dragon Ball Super Superheroes updated release in June this time, instead of 2 days from now, and how this is going to wrap up. This time, we're mostly focusing on the past, since this is where most nostalgia-driven fans live. Can anyone play some Solid State Scouter in here on the radio? Chapter 83, Bardock vs. Gas 2. Now, unlike last time out, this is pretty much the entirety of the chapter, and the major crux of how Bardock managed to best Gas. Can this work for Goku and crew? Well, hopefully Granola is the one to utilise this weakness and not Goku stealing the win. Again. Where we last left off, I was busy over there having a fit in regards to Goku suddenly getting the limelight in what was supposed to be Granola's story. But in the middle of me being a little bit silly, Goku and Gas had been fighting across the stars, and ultimately, the latter let rip some of his inner truths and some of his backstory, including a little bit of micturation in there, which managed to humanise him a little bit. Not a lot, but yeah, something. Whis got to play babysitter whilst Goku popped some gas and only had 20 minutes in his pocket. He was hunting, looking for MacGuffin, then he found the Scouter. Robo Oatmeal fixed it enough to play some audio from it, and we now get into the fight itself from the Scouter's perspective, and Goku's inner mind has opened. And that's saying something, because this is Goku, we know Goku, but anyway, let's resume. We start things off with Gas being amazing, and showing off his techniques that we are familiar with, albeit in a smaller form, because he's even smaller than he is. Monaito is offering Bardock an out though, in regards to leaving, since this wasn't his fight to begin with, but the Merc doesn't budge, because he's Bardock. But then he hears something from Gas as to the Saiyan's future. Oh yeah? Something that Elec had heard apparently, from Frieza. And that is cool since we know that Frieza and Elec are working together at this point in the story and the timeline. But Bardock ain't having any of that crypto stuff and goes into fighting Gas the only way he knows how. By fighting and ki blasts, obviously. But Gas puts a donk on it and he then hits the Saiyan with a spiky lollipop. And I must say that Toyotaro is really getting it with the close-ups here and the visceral nature of this entire close-quarter encounter. It feels really, really good. Even the panels are looking a little more dynamic here than usual. And I get a feeling that he's been looking forward to this section, that boy. Bardock then tells Monaito and the sleeping Granola to get out of town, before transforming into his current form in the present. Albeit a little bit smaller, since Gas is younger, obviously. So is this his second form? Does he have a deep voice? Anyway, he powers up. But not before Monaito has indeed escaped, to then grab the 2 cerulean Dragon Balls to most likely help out in some fashion. Fair idea, Monaito? Perhaps maybe wish for Gas to be paralysed so he can't fight anymore, or to have a change of heart and not attack anymore? Well, we will find out very, very shortly, because Bardock right now is busy getting slammed into a mountain. But we don't actually have to wait that long, because we see Torombo in the distance being summoned. And what was the wish? Well, Bardock was offered to return home, thanks to the wish on the dragon. There is seemingly no condition for this wish, since this is maybe within the dragon's powers, so okay, that's cool. At least we know that teleportation is a freebie with Torombo. However, Bardock refuses the wish. Yeah, that makes sense because Goku refuses wishes, doesn't he? Gas is distracted by the dragon though, because he has no clue about what it is. So the battle continues with Bardock getting a distraction. And the Saiyan here is very much acting like how the fandom says he should. Monaito congratulates Bardock for his courage and determination, but Bardock brushes this aside and says that he'd rather die than flee a battle. Again, very much like his original archetype. When asked for another wish, he simply states, quite casually, for his sons to be well and to thrive. Not really getting the whole wish-granting aspect of the dragon and the need for specific wishes, but okay. At least he cares for Raditz somewhat to include him in the wish. Oh hey, make sure that he becomes the king of the Beatles while you're at it. Kinda deserves it, that boy. Might come in handy someday. Bardock. I don't think that wish will turn out well for one of them, but a wish is a wish. The Heeters have no clue about the Dragon Balls and how they disperse, and mistake them for mere shooting stars, whilst Monaito resolves himself to protect Granola as best he can because of Bardock's bravery. Something he was sort of doing up until recently, but putting it beyond doubt now. Bardock's constitution proving very critical here. Monaito then stating that selfish wishes bring about doom. Ooh, that's very true. If only he did a better job at hiding the Dragon Balls buddy in the future and making sure that that didn't come to pass. After some more intense close duels, Gas then ups the ante by taking away Bardock's best asset, his tail. He literally picks Bardock up, grabs his tail, kicks him away, leaving the tail behind in his hands. But also neat. How? Well, it explains that continuity error in Chapter 80. Bardock didn't have the tail at that time when he was being drawn. And now we see why. Cool stuff, Toyotaro. That guy actually corrected it. But Gas then gets interrupted by Monaito, who then takes a spear to the shoulder, whilst telling Bardock that he'll be a better person from now on. Buddy, I don't think you needed to do that to get your point across, and you probably might not be able to live for much longer, but hey, you do you. All of this gets under Gas's skin, and he then goes Hulk form because they won't just shut up and die. He then slams Monaito away, assuming him dead. It's Dragon Ball. You should never assume anyone's dead if you put them in a cloud of smoke or dust. Bardock is in trouble before he uses his experience to emit light to distract Gas and gets a charge on him with kicks and punches despite being weaker than him. And all of this is getting Gas all the more confused. He can't understand why Bardock keeps going. Is it for atoning for his people? Revenge? Something that he's seen to hate me before now? What? Gas is a very simple and naive creature here, and he can't get it when Bardock tells him that he's doing it for the fact that if he's going to die, anything less than victory is worthless. He's going for the win. Okay, that's pretty metal. Before we then get a double spread gut punch. And I must say that Gas sort of finds this all very interesting. And the fact that Bardock fights for whatever, that's pretty intriguing to him. He fights whenever there's an enemy in his way. Yeah, Bardock here is looking more and more intense, and oh yeah, Saiyan Power or Zenkai helps too. Also a cheeky future nod to Super Saiyan there from Gas. Meanwhile, Elec is watching the battle, and lambasts Gas for letting out his inner beast. And this sudden burst in desperation from Bardock results in his signature technique being used, and Gas is defeated because of it. Well, I mean, technically, Saiyan Resolve and Spirit wins the day, and that turns out to be the weakness from Gas, really. But yeah, it's a bit nebulous, open to interpretation. It's not necessarily just that technique that wins out. Bardock then has a short conversation with Elec, him dropping more hints about what happens in the future with meteors and all that. Ooh, I like that a lot. He knows exactly what's going to be happening to the Saiyans. Straight from the Iceling's mouth, no doubt. But this is Elec, and he's a sneak, and he does love his blaster. He shoots Bardock in the shoulder and off of a cliff before firing off some more blasts to make sure he's gone, and then flies away with Gas. This is Dragon Ball. You should never assume that somebody is dead until you see it. Both Bardock and Monaito, sure enough, do survive, the former having lost his scouter, which is failing, which is obviously why it doesn't work now. But Monaito has healed up enough to heal Bardock, and from there, the Saiyan can rebuild. And that's where the chapter ends. All in all, this chapter had a lot of detail going for it. Instead of trying to shoehorn in too much like it did last time out, Gas versus Goku, then Elec and the others, and the Bardock-Gas battle beginning, it chooses to focus on one thing this time, and it does it well. Honestly, this flashback should have been started here instead of tailing off Chapter 82, but we're here now, so let's focus on that. Despite a couple of contradictions here and there, Bardock's persona in this chapter was on point, and fitted better the bill of the Saiyan that a lot of people came to expect for the father of Goku, and kinda hoped for. Despite him having a relatively soft heart in comparison to his 1990 persona, he still has that level of grit and determination in there that remains true to this day. And hey, he remembered Raditz and wished him well too! But I guess that meant he got to live post-Frieza blowing up planet Vegeta. I think the Radish will have something to say about that wish. But in any case, I will give Toyotaro credit that in this chapter, it seems very well thought through in what it's trying to go for. Even down to the fact of addressing the missing tail from a previous chapter. showing us that Gas had pulled it clean off Bardock's butt. Okay, that makes sense. We know that that can happen from previous chapters and series with other characters having it done to them, so it all fits together. Was it Toyotaro lampshading that omission though? Or was this all intentional from the beginning? We'll probably never know for sure, but I feel it's the former. Sometimes Hav and I forget things in our stories, and Toriyama, he forgets whole characters, so it can happen. But credit to the artist for fixing it in-world. Now I want to bring this back to Gas. I think we get what it's going to end up being, the thing that might bring Gas in the present down, and that's down to sheer grit. And maybe hitting him really hard. I know it's a little basic, but it's present, it's sort of nebulous, and logical for a Saiyan warrior too. Gas is a tool when it comes down to it. Despite having potential and impressive techniques and power, he wasn't born with the fighting spirit, to which the monkeys have in spades. Even though Bardock couldn't win on pure numbers or pure strength, the thing that helped him ultimately win out over the Heater was the fact he kept going, and it got under Gas's skin. However, unlike his present form, this past Gas found this fascinating. Gascinating, you could say. He could have easily ended Bardock earlier with the differential in power, but he wanted to know the real reason why the Saiyan kept on fighting when the odds were stacked against him, and Bardock responded with a simple and non-convoluted answer. I just want to win and beat the other guy. Again, makes sense. I also really like the allusions to Planet Vegeta's destruction for two reasons. First, it would again be understandable that Elec, who was buddies and working with Frieza at the time, would know about the Emperor's plan to rid the universe of the Saiyans eventually, as well as their homeworld. And secondly, Bardock's gut feeling from the Broly movie and Minus is explained more. He basically got told that a meteorite could land on their heads, despite it not registering in his mind fully at the time since, Bardock was injured having come out of a battle and he got blasted away and he nearly died. The statement did wheedle its way into his head and ultimately festered in the back of it and left something unsettling that he couldn't quite shake off. It's just that doubt in there, that gut feeling. Why would Elec say that? Is there more to it? When he actually had some time to process the whole thing, instead of being decked in the schnoz by Gas and then Elec's blaster? Because Elec does like to do that. Instead of this being a sudden and unexplained musing in a manga special and a movie, it now has something solid to back it up. Elec had been blustering, thinking that he had offed Bardock and he could just say what he wanted and no one would know. Or he was about to. But he almost gave the game away. What if Bardock's scouter didn't conk out? What if he could have sent that transmission out to other Saiyans? What if other Saiyans were listening? Could that have possibly led to a revolt or a resistance forming? More Saiyans surviving, perhaps? Well, that's all conjecture right now. But it's an intriguing thought that I encourage you all to explore in your own time. Then we get to Bardock's wish. It's perfect. It's so him. He doesn't take the wish seriously, because he doesn't know what a dragon is, unlike his son. He basically just wishes his sons well, and that's it. It's a very loose wish, but it would lead to both his sprogs not being felled on planet Vegeta and reaching adulthood in somewhat healthy shapes. And really, I think any Saiyan father would wish for their son or child to reach adulthood at the very least. Try and realise the potential in a very small capacity at least. Even if they ended up in the battlefield dead, they would at least fought for the Saiyan cause. All this despite one of them ending up being Vegeta's dog's body, and then they both ended each other, essentially as part of Piccolo's attack. I hope Bardock wasn't looking then. I feel like him not mentioning Gine was apt too, actually. Even though that made me kinda sad when I first saw it, that he didn't consider her and wished for her safety too, I just had to remind myself, Bardock is Saiyan. The fact that he even stuck around Gine for as long as he did is an achievement in itself. So it is in keeping with Saiyan logic somewhat. He wants his boys to thrive and be strong warriors, so the wish does check out. Even though I do feel bad for Gine too, but I'll look the other way there, it does fit with his psyche. And another good thing is that it leads to Monaito learning to not be reliant on the Dragon Balls, and it's where he has his aversion toward them start to form, at least for the present cause. But yeah, he could have spared a lot of bother by finding them maybe again when everything was down, and then destroying them if he didn't need them anymore, but oh well. At least it led to him protecting Granola directly. A lot of puzzle pieces fitting together in this chapter, that's for sure. So, this chapter was a lot more straightforward this time out, and it did a good job in simplifying the whole Gas and Bardock situation, whilst also giving us a very subtle clue as to how to beat Gas. Just keep going. Just keep fighting. Gas doesn't understand fighting grit and spirit, and even now, 40 years later, he still can't quite get his head around it. It's what helped Goku escape and hang in there despite him being underpowered on paper against Gas. Goku had the gusto, even though he was lacking his relatively high amount, to stay at it and find a solution and some breathing space in order to help the others. The gang have simply got to keep going against all odds and remain true to the Saiyan rule of fighting until you beat the other guy. Perhaps this is what Granola will learn too, ironically. How to fight like a Saiyan, despite him hating them for so long. And if he does manage to do that, I think it'll be extremely poignant. Now, if you want to see what you may have missed out on or some other examples of our long-form discussions, look at our podcast channel for the in-depth review of this chapter coming soon, or maybe one of my other discussions right here. And I shall see you all for next month's review. Catch you later!